time. All right, I'm Lawrence Presman. We got a show lined up. The great, the incredible, the world-famous Ralph Michaels. He'll be joining us right off the bat. He's got a baseball bet. Yes, it's still going on. Kansas City playing the Yankees. And of course, in typical Ralph Michaels fashion, he picked a big game to talk about in college football. Alabama minus 16 against Wisconsin. He also has a chart going, which we'll discuss a little later. I don't know what the chart is. It said we'll load by 11:15 a.m. And we've got Kyle Anthony. Kyle Anthony is our UFC expert, one of the best there is out there. He's going to look at 2 UFC fights this coming Saturday, a huge UFC card. And he's got a bet for us on the Shevchenko Grasso rematch to the rematch. As well, Art DiCesare at the end of the show. Art is a sportsbook risk manager at the Westgate. I'm going to tell you who's going to cover in the Jacksonville Jaguars Cleveland Browns game. Teddy, what's up for your big game breakdown?
I'm going to tell you who's going to cover in the Dolphins-Bills game tomorrow night. We have an opinion on side and total in that one. We'll share that with you in just a few moments. And, of course, in What Bettors Learn, we're going to talk about quarterbacks coming off of injuries and what it means for early season betting. Lawrence?
Well, I'm looking forward, dude. I took apart the Buffalo game yesterday in our daily presidential address. I had the under. If you guys want to check that out, that standalone video is up at our YouTube channel, WagerTalk TV. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Let's bring in the great Ralph Michaels. Ralph, how are you, brother? How was the weekend?
Weekend was great. You know, I am down in Florida. Brian Leonard stopped by to visit me yesterday. So we hung out a little bit at the beach on Daytona Beach and got to hang out. Teddy, I am going to do something I've never done before. There is a situation in the Buffalo-Miami game that you're going to be talking about. I'm going to be on bet on it right after it. And I have an angle that applies in that game that is 46-20, 70% since 2011. Tune in to Bet on It, Trends and Angles, to find out more on that.
Well, Michael's plugging our number one show. Speaking about our number one show, a long time ago, it used to be the NFL Presidential Address. It's up now, everybody. I taped it yesterday. 17 minutes of glorious Prez. So check that out. Ralph, the sun has done you well. You look great. You look healthy, fitter. I'm so happy for you, bro. Let's get into this, though. Baseball, Kansas City, New York Yankees. You like the under 8 in this game? Tell us why.
I do. First, I'm going to start with a system. Obviously, you're never going to base a play on a system. But again, does it pass the muster that it's a legitimate play? Well, going back to 2018, teams that are off a shutout loss at home and now playing game 3 of a series as a favorite with a total of 7.5 or higher. So you have a home team. They're the better team. They're off a shutout loss. Those teams have gone 26-51 over under. That is 65.2% to the under. We look at the Yankees. We know the Yankees are a different team against lefties. In fact, this year they're 8-14 against lefties with an average line of minus 185. Folks, that is minus 41% ROI. But I'm not talking about the Yankees side. I'm playing the total. They have averaged 3.9 runs per game. That's inflated because they had 2 very big games in that stretch against left-handed pitchers. Their numbers are much lower than that. In the last 5 games against lefties, they've only scored 16 runs. That breaks out to 3.2 runs per game. Since April 23rd, you think, boy, those Yankees bats are going to be pissed off after a shutout loss. Well, I'll tell you what, they're 0-3-1 after a shutout loss, averaging just 2.8 runs per game. And KC, the last 11, their bats have not been working. They're 2-8-1 over under, averaging 3.0 runs per game and only 6.5 hits per game. You look at Gill, 13 home starts, a 171 opposing batting average, and Hill had a couple starts back in August 12th and 20th. He He had a lower back strain. He struggled in those two. They set him down for a few weeks. He's had one start since he's come back. It was 6 innings of one hit shutout ball against the Cubs and Raggins. He's off a 6-inning, 4-hit shutout as well. And in his last 6 road starts, he's allowed, in one game he had a bad start against Houston. He allowed 5 runs. He pitched 5 shutout innings, gave up 5 runs in the 6th. In the other 4 games on the road, he's allowed a total of only 7 runs. Under, for me, KC and the New York Yankees.
So I started looking at the Yankees at home. I noticed the Yankees have been trending over at home lately. 6-0 the last 6. But even back to the All-Star break, I got the Yankees. They lost their first game after the All-Star break was an under at home. Since then, 18-6 to the over, playing in the Bronx, 6-0 the last 6 prior to yesterday. Does that concern you at all when you talk about not just a short-term trend, but short and medium-term trends where the Yankees just been flying over the total consistently in the Bronx?
Well, Teddy, 80% of those games are versus righties. So, no, we have a good lefty here who's off a great performance. Yankees are a different team against lefties, especially at home.
Ralph Michaels joining us. Ralph, before we get into some college football, Alabama versus Wisconsin, what do you have to promote?
Well, I have my first 5% in college football up. And, guys, this is the first time I think we've ever had a 30-day football-only special. So if you're not interested in baseball because it's winding down, there's a site-wide special valid for anyone that you're a football fan. You'll get both college football and the NFL for $1.99. Folks, that's football for $7 a day. That includes my 5% in college football. If you just want to buy that play, it is up and loaded already. Available for you now, WT.buzz/RM.
Ralph Michaels, everyone. And guys, I got to shout out all the new purchasers from yesterday. We ran a $5 program yesterday. We're going to be doing this every single Tuesday moving forward. We got a ton of incredible response. It was amazing. We picked up so many new clients. I cannot thank you guys enough. Trusting us with your money, with your betting, means the world to me. And it's a responsibility we don't take lightly. What an outstanding promotion from head office. Way to go, Johnny, Missy, Melissa, and the team. Ralph, Alabama, my brother, -16 against Wisconsin. Where are we going in this game?
Well, I'm going to the database because I forgot to pull something up. So as I'm talking and looking down, my apologies. So number one, this really is an eye test play for me. You look at what Alabama's done. You know, granted, not a strong schedule, but Western Kentucky and USF are far superior than what Wisconsin has played. What have I taken out of Alabama? Well, the offensive line needs a little work. They were -3 turnovers against USF, so that game was closer because of turnovers. When I look at Wisconsin now with Luke Fickell, you know, I am just not enamored with the offense. You look at their strength of schedule. They've played Western Michigan, a big favorite. What did Western Michigan do against Ohio? About 50-plus, got shut out. They beat South Dakota State. They only had a 148-yard edge in that game. When you're playing Western Michigan and South Dakota at home, it's not South Dakota State, folks, that won the FCS. It's just South Dakota. They've averaged only 4.2 yards per carry. They're averaging only 60.3 completion percentage, and that's with Tyler Van Dyke, who's really looked poor. He's averaging 6.4 yards per attempt. Now, Alabama, their defense has got a lot of work. Their defense has been on the field for 170 plays the first 2 games. That is the 3rd most in college football. Gives you a lot of work, and you know the pace is going to be slower against Wisconsin, so those people will be ready. Let's look at the flip side. Wisconsin's defense has been on the field for 110 plays. They now have to take a step up and play a quicker tempo pace. Both of those are an advantage. I look at Bama's 3rd down defense, number 3 in the country, allowing 14.3%. I look at Milroe, 11.1 yards per attempt. And again, Bama's game was much closer against USF because they turned the ball over and then they pulled away in the fourth quarter. And I know people are going to say it. And, Alabama has Georgia on deck. No, they don't. They've got a bye week on deck, and then they're playing Georgia after. And I went to the database in this. Since 2008, if you are an AP top 10 team, you have a bye on deck with an opponent that's also an AP top 10 team, like Bama has with Georgia on deck. Those teams have gone 95 and 45, 68%, guys. These are an AP top team, 68%. And if they're an away favorite of 7 or more, they have gone 83% since 2008. When you have a top 10 team on deck after a bye, you want to put some things on tape to make sure they have to struggle and do some work against you. You have a bye to work on their issues. I do like Alabama here. It passes the eye test. I think Wisconsin, to me, I would have made this game about 19 or 19 and a half after looking at the first two games. Bama, minus the 16 against Wisconsin.
So I did a big game breakdown on Alabama, Wisconsin early in the week, and my conclusion was I don't want the dog in this game. So I guess my follow-up, even though I don't want the dog in this game, there is one concern that I have for sure about Alabama in this contest, and that was this quote from Luke Fickell. What are you talking about? It's been hanging over the top of our heads from the time we walked in the door here, meaning that this game against Alabama, when he got the job, what was that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? When Fickell got, this is the one game they've been pointing to for years. Does that mean anything? And when you talk about, now it's not like they have to win. Not like they can lose by 2 touchdowns and still cover. But when you have a coach that says, when I took this job, this game was the game that stood out to me. Does that mean anything a couple of years later?
I can't believe you're going to look at a 3-year schedule as a new head coach in the Big Ten and say Alabama is the one team that we're going to focus on in a 3-year span. So again, he's saying it because it's this week and its current form. Listen, to me, it's much more important them having to go to USC and worry about that offense that they have to do next week in their Big Ten opener versus what they have in this. Obviously, it's in Camp Randall. You don't want to, not put up your best performance, but in front of the home folks. But again, looking at these quarterbacks, looking at these defenses, looking at who they've played, it is Bama for me.
Ralph Michaels joining us, exclusive handicapper at WagerTalk.com. And Ralph, my apologies, brother. You did put the chart up. I missed it because, I rode today. Oh, Teddy, you can roll your eyes till you're blue in the face. Nobody cares, at least, especially me. CFB totals, 43 and less. How do we bet them, Ralph?
Well, how many times have we talked on this show, be it baseball, be it NFL? Should we bet high totals? Should we bet low totals? How do we treat them? Well, I went through, and college football is such a unique game. First 4 weeks, many teams play their non-conference games. Then you get your conference foes. And then obviously you get, bad weather at the end of the year. So I wanted to break it down in a little different pattern to this way. And I went all the way back, guys, since 2015. These are the college football totals of 43 or less. No surprise, week 1 is an under week. We've talked about this in the NFL and in college football, week 1 unders. But take a look at those very low totals for likely most non-conference games 2, 3, 4, and 6, all on the plus side. Take a look at game 7 and later. There's only 1 week that has a positive number. And guys, if you look to the right, where I broke them out, if you look at games 2 through 4 with a total of 43 or less, the over is 60%. When you look at games 10 or higher at the end of the year with a very low total, 61.1% to the under. And I do have one game to share with you guys. In those yellows, if a team is a 14-point favorite with a low total, they have gone 63.2% against the spread. And if that team is a minus 14-point favorite with a total of under 43, and they're also a favorite They've gone 75% against the spread. There's one team that is a favorite of -14 or more with that low total. It is Iowa. We'll see if their offense can continue today. So the next few weeks, guys, these very low totals do tend to go over. But remember, later in the year, from week 10 on, it's been over 60% to the unders in college football.
And real quick, Ralph, you mentioned Iowa, and Iowa was exactly the team I was going to talk about. How much of this is just Iowa? Because Iowa's played all of these low total games, and they've all gone under for every recent season. Is it can one team influence this this chart enough to matter?
You know what? There's another one that was close to this. It's Baylor Air Force. So see where those lines pan out. I am pulling out my data, Teddy, to see if I could find it real quick. I don't have it in front of me, but I'll tell you what I will do. Right after I'm off the show, I will go in and give you, of those teams that are a 14-point favorite with a total of 43 or less, how many of them were Iowa, and we'll get the actual number for you in just a minute.
Ralph frickin' Michaels. Man, Ralph, you get a lot of love in the chat room, a lot of love from us over at WagerTalk Today. Outstanding work, my brother. You are on Bet On It. When will that be live for the viewing audience?
Right after this show, we'll go to it. So make sure you check it out later today. I know I'm very excited to always watch it with Teddy now on it as well. But I have 3 NFL charts and 3 college football charts different than this one today. So if you like this kind of data, that's what my TNA segment is all about.
Yeah, and guys, Bet On It's an incredible show. And they just added Teddy to the roster. Balances the show really well. 3 incredible people plus Teddy. It really gives the show a new dynamic. Make sure to check that out. And of course, if you don't have an hour, presidential address, baby. 15 minutes long. I take apart every game on the board. 7,000 of you have already watched that show. And yes, Teddy, I'm very proud of the NFL presidential address, and I will continue to plug it. It takes a talented man to do an NFL show by himself, every game on the board. And in my show yesterday, I patted myself on the back, bro. So, I'm annoying you today. Ma nishtana. What do you got, my brother?
Let's talk about what bettors learned. And this isn't from last night. This is from last weekend, but it really stood out to me this past weekend. Let's talk about NFL veteran quarterbacks off-season ending injuries. Aaron Rodgers off an ACL. What happens? He doesn't play in the preseason. And this is key. NFL veteran quarterbacks off-season ending injuries that didn't play in the preseason. Aaron Rodgers off the ACL. The Jets go 0-1 straight up and against the spread. And you don't want to put too much on that. They played San Francisco, an elite team, but it wasn't pretty. Kirk Cousins off an ACL. Didn't play in the preseason. The Falcons 0-1 straight up, 0-1 against the spread. Their offense was not pretty. And Pittsburgh beat them by margin without scoring a touchdown. Clearly, Cousins wasn't right. Deshaun Watson off shoulder surgery. Didn't play in the preseason. Browns 0-1 straight up and against the spread. The first half of that ball game, if you had Cleveland or like Cleveland, was about as ugly as it gets. You can throw Anthony Richardson in there. Although Richardson doesn't count because he missed the end of last year, but he played in the preseason, 2 games, and he's not really a veteran QB. So I'm not putting Richardson in the same category as Rodgers, Cousins, Watson. We talk about writing stuff down and remembering it for next year. This is one to write down and remember for next year because NFL preseasons have changed. They really have. Every team used to have a walkthrough. Lots of teams don't now with a 3-game format. And there are clearly, when it comes to week 1, some teams, some quarterbacks that are not ready. So how do we take advantage next year? Look at player props. All these QBs coming off injuries, we're going to bet them under if they don't play in August. Team totals, unders. And against the spread, fading the squads with the veteran QBs coming off the season-ending injuries who didn't play in the preseason. So, yeah, this isn't something I learned last night, but it's something that stood out like a sore thumb this weekend. We'll remember that for next year, a week earlier. Lawrence?
Teddy covers. Before we bring Kyle Anthony on, we got a couple of UFC picks. We're going to end the show with Art DiCesare, your big game breakdown, and I'm going to take apart the Jacksonville-Cleveland game. I want to just make mention really quick. Last night, I spent a lot of time going through the WagerTalk TV channel. We have 169,000 subscribers, and for you guys who haven't subscribed to our channel, Teddy, I was amazed. I mean, obviously, as one of the owners of the company, I know what's going on, but I don't know. I'm not as involved as Johnny and Rick and some of the other owners, and I was blown away. If you look at what is going on at WagerTalk TV, the amount of content that we are producing is absolutely incredible. We have live shows going all day long between First Pitch, WagerTalk Today. We have a college football show. We've got Puck Time starting when hockey begins. We have our NBA show and our college basketball show. You have your opening line report, one of the biggest shows on this channel. Bet on it, which gets 70, 80,000 viewers. We have Drew Martin's baseball show daily, incredible viewership. Steve Merrill's Fade the Public, incredible viewership. Brian Powers' Power 5, incredible viewership. My presidential address. We have pieces on every single game on the board in the NFL and almost every single game on the board in college football, separate videos, betting strategy videos, meet the expert videos. The amount of content coming out of WagerTalk TV is second to none. I defy anybody to find a channel anywhere, whether it is on television, whether it is on XM radio, or whether it is on YouTube, that is producing the quantity and quality of betting content that we at WagerTalk are. Shout out to Joe, Dan, and Chris Allen and his team, and shout out to the hosts and the guests for making this work. Our channel is unfreaking believable. Okay, calm now. Kyle Anthony joining us. How are you, Kyle?
Doing good, man. Doing good. That was quite the. Did you prepare that speech? That was good. That was really good.
I never prepare anything. Teddy knows that. I never prepare. But I was going through the channel last night and I was blown away. Sorry, Teddy.
So the thing that stands out to me, Lawrence, before we go to Kyle, about all the content we produce, and you mentioned at the end, you talked about the quality. It's not the quantity of content. I mean, the quantity is unbelievable. The quality is unbelievable. There is so much bad betting information, stunningly bad stuff from reputable sources. All right. Not on this channel. It's strong info from strong cappers. If you haven't subscribed, do it now.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And listen, Kyle, you're one of those great people, dude. I love you. Thanks for joining us. Let's go. Grasso, Shevchenko. This is the rematch of the rematch of the match. Man, who's winning this one? How do we bet it? We got Shevchenko as a dog. Always value there, no?
Well, this is definitely an interesting matchup here. As you said, Prez, this is going to be the trilogy fight. You had the first fight where Shevchenko looked to be on the way to victory, makes a mistake, gets submitted in the fourth round. And then you had, most recently, they had a very close fight. It ended up being a draw. So here we are at the third and probably the final fight that we'll be having between these two ladies. Now, Shevchenko, as you said, she is a world beater. She has been dominating the division since 2018. Out of her last 12 UFC fights, 11 of them were title fights. So she just has consistently faced the highest level of opponents. But when you really look at it, the big issue here for me here is that she's on the wrong side of 35 years old, now 36. She's facing Grasso, who's now 31, really entering her prime. And what I really feel that I'm seeing in Shevchenko is she's starting to slow down. You know, definitely the output when you're looking at how sharp her strikes are. And I really like the elevation that I'm seeing from Grasso. We've got Grasso sharp boxing. She moves forward. And what she does really well against Shevchenko is move forward with volume. And that really starts to smother the kicker. Shevchenko, her best weapon is kicking. Her best weapon is those strikes. And that's going to be an option for her to really go out there and really push that forward pace and try to really put her into uncomfortable positions. Shevchenko on the other side there will look for takedowns. And I think she's starting to lose a little confidence in her striking, where she has that ability there where now she has to stand and strike with Grasso. I think she's going to find success there. And then also on the other side of it here is that Grasso really has become well-rounded. I like what she's doing with Diego Lopez. She's really starting to evolve her striking, mixing, and her level changing. Really looks good on the ground where she's transitioning, reversals. I love what I'm seeing there from her. So when you're looking at this spot here, I like Grasso minus 135. I think there's value there, and I think she is the next big star in the division.
So I'm seeing the total for this fight, Kyle. 4.5 minus 200 for the over. This fight's going to the cards, right? This is going to be a decision. Would you want to bet Grasso by decision? Because that's something you do a lot.
Yeah, I do. And I'm just looking at it as I just am not sure about the tick down that we're going to see from Shevchenko. I'm a little worried on that now at this age. You've got the decision. I think it's roughly around plus 175. I like that number as well, but I also am not going to get too far away from this minus 130, minus 135 number. I still think that's pretty strong as well.
Kyle Anthony joining us. Kyle, you have been absolutely rolling all year in this sport. Number one ROI in all sports at WagerTalk this calendar year, up 90 units of profit in the MMA, won 23 of your last 27 UFC events. Congratulations. What do you have going with this Saturday? What a big, juicy, delicious card.
Yeah, so I have a 5% play up right now, 10-0 run on these 5%. We're coming off not long ago, UFC 305. We cashed at 5% at plus 120. So we are finding strong spots to put our money here. Right now, I have 4 plays up. Most of them are at plus money, and it will probably have about 1 or 2 on there now. So go grab it, and let's keep this train rolling.
Kyle Anthony, let's go, baby. Irene Aldana versus Norma Dumont. How do we bet this one?
So in this fight here, we have nearly a pick'em price. We're seeing around minus 110 for both these ladies. And really the big thing here is that both of them do have paths. And I think that's why this line is as tight as it is, as you're seeing that Aldana, she has good boxing. She's going to look to utilize that range. Then you've got Norma Dumont, who's going to look for the wrestling, look for the control time, push forward and utilize that. Now, she currently has a 68% takedown success rate, very good, where Norma's able to get those takedowns, get that control time. She is coming off 4 straight victories. And I do think that these victories have slightly pushed this line closer than it should be. And I think there's a little bit of an overreaction. But if you look real quickly at her last 4 fighters, I mean, you know, she beat Danielle Wolf, who was in her second pro MMA fight and is 40 years old, and Norma beat her. She beat Carol Rosa, definitely a pretty solid fighter, but it was 35-30 on significant strikes, and she was dropped in that fight, got the decision. Chelsea Chandler, not very high on. And then most recently, she fought Germaine Durandamy, who Germaine Durandamy is a 40-year-old who hadn't fought since 2020, and only in that fight, Dumont landed 11 strikes. That's almost hard to do in a fight to land that low of strikes. She ends up winning positionally by 6 takedowns, where Aldana, she's only lost to former or current champions. She's only lost to Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm, and Raquel Pennington. I think her 76 takedown defense rate is going to hold up. She's going to be able to stand and strike. She has way better boxing, way better footwork. I think her volume is going to be way higher. So this is another spot where I think that Aldana holds a lot here, where she's going to probably have the more damaging strikes as well too. So I like Irene Aldana in this spot, and I think she gets the job done.
Kyle Anthony, outstanding stuff. Go to your harem, my brother. We'll see you either next week or the week after. Teddy, such interesting questions on in the chat room, and I can't get to it because we're running out of time. But ask that question tomorrow, Stephen Hobbs. I want to address that question. Be in the chat room. Ask me again. We're going to go through it. Theodore, let's go. Big game breakdown, then Art DiCesare.
Sure. Let's talk about 2 teams that lost in week 1 by exactly a half a point against the point spread. They both won straight up, but their backers were not so happy. That's Buffalo and Miami. Buffalo's owned this series, 9-1 straight up the last 10 meetings. And yet in this one, right now, looking at the free WagerTalk live odds screen, I'm seeing the Dolphins -2, -2.5 total, 48.5/49. Now, certainly we've seen, as I mentioned, a pretty one-sided series last year, 48-20 and 21-14. That 21-14 was a Week 18 home games for the Dolphins. It gave the Bills the AFC title. There was a ton on the line, and Miami couldn't step up. And they ended up having to go to KC for one of the coldest playoff games in NFL history. It did not serve them well. Same thing in 2022. There were 3 meetings. The Bills beat them in the one that mattered in the playoffs. They swept them in 21. They swept them in 20. And we've seen this Miami team not step up in class particularly well. We know about this team last year. They had 10 wins versus teams that didn't make the playoffs and 1 win against teams that did. That was a 22-20 win against Dallas on the day before Christmas on a walk-off field goal with zeros on the clock. And oh, by the way, if they win by 2 here, that's not enough to cover the point spread. But they lost to Buffalo twice, Baltimore, KC twice, and Philly. The step-up games did not play out well for Miami. Now, last year was last year, and this year is this year. But the track record of Miami does stand out. Now, when we talk about the Buffalo Bills side of the equation, look, I mean, Buffalo was downgraded by most bettors, myself included, coming into the season. They were impressive last week. They got punched in the face, 17-0 early against Arizona. And they gave up, defensively, gave up only a field goal the rest of the way. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, the new receiving corps, man, they've got playmakers on the outside. 9 different receivers caught a pass. Josh Allen was last week's MVP. If I'm going to name one guy, it'd be Josh Allen in that ball game. Now, he did finish the game with his left hand, his non-throwing hand, wrapped up. And he said he was fine. The market's a little bit concerned. But bottom line, this Bills team had 14 plays of 10 yards or more. Sean McDermott, we got down early in the game, and they were fighting back from there. I think that in and of itself is a great sign for our football team. The Dolphins' defense is not Arizona's defense. I get it. But worth noting, Thursday night football since 2019, Sean McDermott, 6-0 straight up in those ball games. That's meaningful for this bettor. And certainly, when we worry about some of the injuries for both these two teams on the defense side of the football, I would not be surprised if we see a higher scoring affair. So look at the Bills, look at the over, and of course, look at WagerTalks.com's great specials right now. We promoted it once already. Let's promote it again. 30 days of both college football and the NFL for only $1.99. That's every play, every day across football for the next 30 days. Just $1.99. Get it now. Agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Prez.
Teddy covers. Guys, if you like what you're hearing, please take a second, hit that like button. We need 30 more likes for my daily presidential address in which we'll look at the Jaguars versus Cleveland. Teddy, I really like that handicap. Obviously, I like the under, you like the over, but we both agree on Buffalo. And this Buffalo team has owned Miami, 12 out of 13. The only time they lost to Miami was 21-19 about 100 years ago, and they dominated that football
if you listen to my big game breakdown, they lost to Miami. It wasn't last year, it was the year before. It was 2022.
Yes.
As I talked about the big game.
21-19, but they dominated that game. If you actually look at the box scores, 31 first downs to 15, double the yardage, etc., etc. Art DiCesare, where's the money coming on this Thursday night football game?
Well, initially, because of the Josh Allen hand stuff, of course the market's going to overreact to that a little bit and, drove the number one way, then drives it another way. Total seen some good under money, to start, and I think we opened 50. So, creep down a little bit there. Obviously, divisional games go under, primetime games go under. So I think that narrative plays into a little bit of the under money coming in. But I think this will be a pretty good, once we get to it, we look at the ticket count, we look at the money. I think this will be a pretty good split action type game when you look at the side for both Miami and Buffalo.
Arthur DiCesare, risk management supervisor at the Superbook, Nevada here at the Westgate Casino in Las Vegas. And Art, I want to look back before we look forward real quick. Week 1. I know that Lions game had to be bad for you. Talk about your worst result. Talk about your best result. How did the house do in Week 1 action? And break it down NFL and college for me, if you would.
Yeah, let's just start with college. College was not as good as the previous week. The previous week was really good for us. When it went all the way from, Thursday through Monday, that was, 4 or 5 days of really good results for us, capping off with the Florida State debacle against Boston College, which really was the cherry on top for us. And then last week, kind of hit or miss. We kind of bounced back and forth, lost a little bit. It wasn't anything to write home about. When you look at the NFL, you're right. The line game, not that great for us. Trying to think of something off the top that was good. What was probably our best result? A really good result was the Thursday game. Kansas City doing what they did was great for us. What else? Nothing. Honestly, Teddy, nothing that really stands out because it wasn't like a insanely profitable day, but it was a profitable day, and that's always important.
Art, you mentioned Kansas City. I did the NFL presidential address yesterday. I know I'm mentioning it again, Teddy. And I talked about what will be the wise guy play of the week. And I said yesterday that I think it's going to be Cincinnati. We've already seen a line move from 6 to 5.5 with a few 5s out there. Tell us what type of action you're getting on that game. And what do you like in that game?
I'm with you, Prez. That's going to be, we always talk, and, it's cliche, but square and sharp divides, all that type of stuff. The public's going to be on Kansas City. No surprise to me that the sharps and the more respected, educated bettors have already taken Cincinnati. It's driven the number down a little bit. Kansas City's going to be in all the money lines. They're going to be in all the teasers. That's what Kansas City is, and they are every week. So I think I would stay away from the game personally, but I think I would lean towards Cincinnati. And then if I really was looking at it, I know Kansas City has a good defense, but I think the Bengals will play better offensively. I would actually probably lean to the over as well. And you've seen the over tick up a little bit as well.
So let's talk about this card for week 2. And we've talked about a couple of games individually, but let's talk about it in a broader sense. Where are you seeing the pros lining up? Where are you seeing the Joes lining up, at least in early week? What's going to be on all the parlay cards, and what games are the wise guys be pounding for 10 dimes a pop?
Absolutely. Let's start with the sharps. Totals. Giant total. They bet over 41. They bet over 42. That's now sitting 44. And everyone's going to go, whoa. How could you take a giant total over? They're the worst offensive team in the league. Well, you know what? Washington's defense is no good. And if the Giants offense, and this is coming from a Giants fan, the Giants offense can't figure it out against this defense, we know there's problems there. There's a lot of problems there. So it feels like, and Daniels looked good. He went up and down the field as well. So that's why you've seen that total go from 41 to 44. Jaguar under against the Browns, 42.5, now 41.5. They also early laid 3 with Jacksonville. That got all the way to 4, which I thought was ridiculous. You saw the buyback come back on Cleveland at 4. It's now settled back to 3. You've seen under money come in on the Raider game, 42.5 to 41.5. Sharps also took the Saints at +7. That's driven down to 6. So that's the early sharp action. Oh, yeah, and the Lion total. That has really flown up. 48.5, 49. Now all the way to 51.5. The early indicating money was all on that over. Antonio Winfield's out for Tampa, probably their best guy in the secondary. And we know how good the Lions are at home. The public's going to be fading to the 2 worst teams in the league. I just talked about the Giants. They're going to lay the short number with the Commanders, -1.5. And they're going to lay 6.5 on the road with the Chargers against the Panthers. They're just going to do it. They're probably both overreactions, but that's what the public does, and that's what most bettors do early on when they see what happened in week 1.
Well, I want to ask you about those 2 teams in particular. Okay, the Giants and the Panthers looked like absolute disasters. In the offseason betting, they were expected to be 2 of the worst teams in the league, so this is no surprise. You know where the money's coming with these teams. You know the public's going to fade them again and again. How much liability do you expect to have on a week-in, week-out basis? And how much of the market's going to adjust downwards on 2 teams already power rated as 2 of the worst teams in the league?
It's a great point, Teddy. You're right. They both had, Carolina had a win total 5.5. Giants were 6.5. So obviously bottom-feeding teams. And for them to have those performances week 1, especially the Giants. The Saints, 7.5 win total, better team. Minnesota and the Giants were basically the same. They were both 6.5, both expected to be bad, and the Giants laid that type of egg at home. I think week in and week out, obviously the power ratings get adjusted. You don't always want to overreact terribly to one game, but if we see this again this week, there's going to have to be major adjustments. And there's almost like that cross-off mentality where you're going to look like we can't lose on these sides when these teams are playing. We have to almost not force action on the other side, but, maybe put up a number where it's like, hey, you need to take the other side here because we can't lose on a Carolina game. We can't lose on a Giant game. And, you maybe throw another one or two teams in there in the next couple of weeks. That definitely happens.
Have you seen any wise guy support for the Giants or the Panthers this week so far? Because I know the public's not betting them.
No, definitely not. I mean, I do think, and we probably won't get there, I think if we ever got to 7 with Carolina, I think there would be some buy on Carolina. Because you guys know as well as I do, there was a lot of Carolina support last week from the Sharps. They were loving. Yep. I mean, Carolina was such a almost public Sharp play where I felt like a lot of people I respect and a lot of people I talk to said Carolina's a good look. Carolina outright. They could really go in there and shock them. And, I mean, they just didn't come to play. The game was over 10 minutes into the game. So Carolina, I think, maybe is still in that realm where if they get 7 at home, underdogs in the NFL, over the long haul usually do well. So if it got to 7, there would be some buy. I don't know if we get there, though.
We got just a few minutes left with Art DiCesare from the Westgate Superbook here in Las Vegas. Art, let's shift our focus to college football for this week. And I'm going to ask you the same basic question that I asked you a few minutes ago. Who are the Joes betting? Who are the pros betting? What games on all the parlay cards? What games are you getting the limit bets on?
Yeah, let's, in college, we'll start with the public. It's weird because and I love college football. I know you do, Teddy. It's a bad week. I mean, it's hard to find good games. The 2 best games are probably Friday. One involves UNLV. I mean, how crazy is that to say? But public's taking UCLA +3. They're laying the big number with Georgia. They're just going to do that. That happens a lot. They'll lay 24 with Georgia. And they're taking the points with Wisconsin. They're going to take the 16 at home against Alabama. Those are 3 public plays, and it's not really overwhelming with public support, but we have seen public support. Now you're going to look at some sharp support in college football. Let's start with some totals. They've taken the under in the Colorado game from 60 to 58.5. Under in the Hawaii game, 52.5 to 50.5. Under in the LSU game, 52 to 50.5. And they took the over in the Rice game. Low total, especially in college, 43.5. Bumped up to 44.5/45. Now we'll look at some of the sides. Minnesota laying 14.5. That's moved 3 points all the way to 17.5. Oregon support. I know they've been shaky the first couple of weeks, but Oregon playing in that Civil War game early in the season against Oregon State. They laid 14. That's now 16. That's a game that really should probably be closer to 17, but Oregon has looked so shaky early in the season. They laid 21 with Arkansas. That is now 24. And getting back to that Hawaii-Sam Houston game, when Hawaii obviously comes off the island and they make that first move to the mainland, they're laying Sam Houston. Laid 3, it's now 4.5. And they loved Sam Houston last week. They took 23.5, 22.5. So there's been some early sharp support with Sam Houston State. Some of the wise guys really like them.
Art DiCesare joining us, everyone. Guys, we still need 16 likes for a daily presidential address, and we're frankly running out of time. Art, 2 questions. Let's start with the first one. What do you like? What is Art DiCesare betting, college football and NFL?
My favorite college football play of the week is Louisiana Tech. They were as high as 22. They're playing NC State. NC State does not look good. Grayson McCall, the great, 10th year senior transfer from Coastal Carolina, who probably should figure it out at some point. They did not look good in week 1. They got obliterated against Tennessee. I think Louisiana Tech, it's now 21. I would probably get on it now before it dips under 21. But I like them to stay within that number against NC State. I don't like what I've seen out of NC State. And as far as the NFL, Prez, it's a game that kind of went back and forth. I don't understand the Brown line. Now, it's 3. You missed 4 and 3.5. But I like the Browns in the game. I don't like Jacksonville. Cleveland will find a way to stay within the game and actually win the game outright. Watson can't play any worse, and I'm not a Jacksonville. I've been against Jacksonville all offseason, so I like the 3, and I love Cleveland in the teaser.
Well, Art, we did get
money last week.
I have another question, Teddy.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. We good? So, Art, I'm going to talk Cleveland, Jacksonville in 1 second. For to note, one of our listeners every day visits this channel, comments all the time. Very appreciative of him. He writes, "Hey, Prez, could you possibly ask Art a question for me? In the history of Oracle Park, no right-handed batter has had a splash hit home run to right field. Would Westgate take a futures bet on who the first would be?"
Wow, that's a great question. I don't want to say no because you can never say no, but when we put up our Major League Baseball futures, that's probably not something we would do because it's just such a niche market. I mean, we might have one or two guys make the bet. I mean, it's just, and then you're pricing every single person. Obviously, you're going to have a field. The field is going to be huge for you, but, you'll have all the divisional opponents and then obviously, all the giant guys. It's tough.
It's too hard.
I think it is too hard.
It's too hard.
Such a niche market. Yeah. It's
Teddy
too much of a niche
covers
market.
plus 800.
Yeah. We want to see bets, right? And if money's not coming over the counter or through the mobile, that's a lot of time and effort for a couple of bets.
Art, Fort deserves a question. I didn't like it, but I gave it to him anyway. What do you got to promote?
Listen, as always, guys, Westgate, come down, check us out. We still got a great promo on the app for first-time users. Bet 100, get 100. And I know you were on the Sunday show, Prez. I'm on that Saturday show every morning with Kelly. I mean, Kelly's got a great Saturday and Sunday morning show. It's an hour before the college football kickoff, hour before the NFL kickoff. You get me on Saturdays behind the counter, giving you up-to-date information for all your college football. And then you got another guy in the wrist room, our guy Chase, who's going to give you up-to-date information right before NFL kickoff. So it's really good. Check it out.
Guys, we're out of time. We can't do a daily presidential address. My humble apologies. I will double it tomorrow and fix that up. Teddy covers. Awesome show, my brother. Thank everyone and take us home.
Thanks to our guest, thanks to our co-host, and thanks to you for taking time out of your busy day to spend with us right here on WagerTalk Today. We'll do it again tomorrow, same time, same channel. Between now and then, enjoy the games and best of luck with your bets.